I hear this often being a CrossFit coach. And when we talk about nutrition, we say to somebody, we need to stop eating the processed sugary snacks. And I hear, but I need them in the cupboard because my kids need to eat them. And I like, if you could just stop and listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth at that point. You are saying that you understand it's unhealthy and you don't want to put it in your body, but you need it to feed to your children. That is completely backwards. Over the course of a decade in the military, I got to see some ordinary people do some truly extraordinary things. I started to believe that we're all capable of so much more than we could ever imagine. Now, I'm on a mission to unleash human potential. Whether that's through exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, or vocation, it all starts with mindset. Strive for greatness, despise mediocrity, and accept nothing but the best that you can be.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of our Unleashing Potential podcast, talking all things fitness and mindset related. We come to you from two places at one time. So we have our CrossFit Grovedale owner, Aaron Summers in Australia, and I'm speaking to you from the good old US of A. Also today, we are blessed by the lovely CrossFit Grovedale nutrition coach, Galit. How are you doing today, lady?
Very good. Just actually finished a workout in the car park. So very beautiful sunny day to be outside finally.
Love it. Restrictions are starting to lift.
Yeah.
Our topic today is actually one that dates back to basically when life began, which is nutrition. Good old nutrition. Oh, how we have complicated it as human beings. I'm actually really excited to talk about this topic. I mean, it's something I think everyone likes to talk about every day. And we're all passionate about it kind of in our personal way, in our personal experiences. And to be honest, I'm just really discouraged and saddened to see every day just it's becoming more apparent how many of us are put our instant gratification of our taste buds over the longevity of our lives. So I think this is a very important topic to chat about. So Aaron, let's go to you first. What is your first word or phrase that you think about when nutrition comes up?
Mindset.
Okay, how's that? Let's talk about that. Nutrition and mindset. What's the relation?
From that perspective, I think we like you alluded to earlier, we overcomplicate probably more than we need to when it comes to nutrition. There's so many different fad diets and there's so many different ways to approach it. People are so wound up around the axles about some of the minor details when, unless we're in the right headspace, we're not going to be able to make those right changes anyway. So I can be aware that a cupcake is not healthy for me. But if I can't change my belief systems to actually believe that that is worse off, then I'm not going to be able to break the habit of choosing that when willpower comes in. So a lot of nutrition comes down to willpower, and then the willpower cycles full circle back to mindset. It's very hard to eat well and healthy if your belief system doesn't actually believe that that's going to make you better and more able to fight challenges in the future.
Which can be kind of hard, right? Because in the same sense of like talking about your belief system, and a lot of people's belief systems can be based on everything that we're reading and seeing every day on the internet, which has a lot of pros to it, but also like a lot of cons. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes in with the diets and the beliefs of what really is good nutrition and not good nutrition. And it's complicated, and you can fully understand why the average person just has no idea about proper nutrition in some sense.
Yeah, we're effectively, our belief systems stem from priming as children, that when we're brought, in my generation, we're brought up to believe certain things were healthy when they just weren't. And it's trying to fight those and break those belief systems is tough. And when big companies are spending millions of dollars to put unhealthy things in our face, like Coca-Cola, what choice? Like, it's hard to fight that fight at the best of times.
Unfortunately. Galit, let's go over to you really quick, just to kind of give the listeners a general rundown of what's your background, how did you grow up, where did you come from, and what kind of led you to your nutrition coaching journey with CrossFit Grovedale?
Oh, okay. To make things a bit short, well, basically, I'm a chef, and I've been a chef for the last 17 years. So I've been close to food for a while. And I've always been much into what I eat and what I put in my body. It just happened naturally. I was very interested in that. After I had my daughter about 4 years ago, I wanted to start taking care of my body even more. So I started going to the gym. Then I did F45, and then I felt like that wasn't pushing it enough, and I decided to get into CrossFit. And I was lucky enough to find this beautiful family. And then I felt like I was really into CrossFit and about everything that I was eating. I felt like I wasn't having enough control or knowledge over it, and how much it could actually help me if I knew more. So I decided to study nutrition, and that was when everything changed in my life. Basically, I found the light and I found that with all the love that I had on it and all the background in chefing, that I could actually help people.
You recently got a certification, correct, through Precision Nutrition?
Yes, precision
Yeah.
nutrition, which is basically background by CrossFit. So I feel like I'm very much into the whole mindset, like Aaron said, of taking care of your body.
Yeah, so it's something you've pretty much grown up doing your whole life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump deep into this really quick. And, this can kind of go for you guys to chime in, because it's more of a question on my end, right? So I was talking to Aaron. I've been listening a lot to podcasts lately, and just about mindfulness and healthy eating and just being aware of your body. And found an interesting, I don't know if the word statistic was brought up, in comparison to these times, right, with COVID. And basically, the World Health Organization, putting out all of these guidelines and the do's and don'ts. And for the most part, you have a majority of the population being like, you need to listen to these experts. They know what they're saying, and, we need to do A, B, and C. And then, you got to do your research. This same organization, World Health Organization, they have many times written articles and came out with statements basically saying that processed meats and red meats, so let's stay on like processed foods, they are known carcinogens for increasing, developing colon cancer. And for some odd reason, people don't want to listen to that side of it. My question would be why, or, what is it that steers people away from listening to them on one aspect in this current situation in comparison to what we have hundreds of studies regarding?
I'll take a shot at that. Humans like to find proof in things that support what they already believe. It comes back to our belief systems again. It's very hard to hear something that's an ugly truth if it doesn't support what you believe. So it's an actual, there's a biasing rule for it, and you talk about it when you study science, that it's called the experimental bias. You will go looking for proofs that support your beliefs, and that's called an experimental bias in science. And that's exactly what's happening. We're saying, let's look to the WHO to help us with the COVID, but let's ignore it for the other stuff, because selling processed food, whether that is processed meats or processed anything, but selling processed food is cheap and it makes the government a lot of money. So it's not in the government's interest to sprout that, but this is not a conspiracist podcast, but that's just a fact. So it's the same as anything, and we all fall into that trap. If we have a belief or an ideal, we will find data that supports that, and we will ignore all other data that flies in the face.
And sometimes people they choose what they want to believe or listen to because it fits them and is comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for some people, it's just easier to say, yes, awesome, I'll listen to that because it fits my current situation and I don't need to change anything, instead of looking at what is happening actually and making the effort of going the extra mile and make a change.
Well, because it brings up how Erin was saying, like a lot of us were just raised like that. And then so when we have that, when we're in that situation to be able to take on that knowledge, people don't want to take that on to be like, wait, I have to change the past 20, 30 years of how my life would, like, it would just send people in a whirlwind, and they don't want to have to face that. But it goes back to what I said in the beginning, like you're putting what you're enjoying just in that moment against like living a long healthy life, and that's what it confuses me. We have everything, we have the information right in front of us.
There are always other options. It's not like it's a definite no. It's just like there are other things that are healthy for you.
Yeah, exactly. So let's kind of stay on that topic. Processed foods, let's talk about it. Why are they such a thing? Why, again, it goes in, and everything I'm kind of stating is either personal experience or just, I'm not a doctor, but other podcasts I've been listening to. So today I came across processed foods make up about 40% of the average Australian diet. And then here in the US, it makes up about 55% of our average diet. I mean, those are crazy. And what is it? What's the good? What's the bad to the processed food? Galit, what are your kind of insights on, should we be eating them? If so, how often? What are we trying to stay towards? What are you trying to avoid?
If you ask me how much processed food should anyone have, is zero. But being realistic, it sometimes happens. So I think we need to choose, if we can, something that is not going to be like fried chicken, and maybe a pizza from a nice place that and not Domino's, or even just buy the base, buy the cheese, some toppings, and do the pizza at home. Like there are a lot of variable, a lot of things that we can do to make that fast food, processed food, a little bit better. Not so full of nasty things inside that we don't even know what it is.
And this is something that you said before, and then it kind of combines with what I said about the internet. There's goods and bads. The good thing is everything's at our fingertips, and it's like any recipe that you want, you can find it. And then there's something that you wrote the other day that I remember reading, that you have a craving for something. That's great. It maybe it's right. So you have a craving for a pizza. Maybe you don't go get that Domino's pizza, still curb that craving, but make it yourself. Go home and like see what ingredients you have. And we have everything at our fingertips now, where the internet tells us we can make a pizza out of freaking cauliflower. Like there's so many ways to do it now. There's no reason to like feel like it's not something that can be accomplished at home, so that everything that's going into it, rather than like you said, like stopping at Domino's or whatever and kind of being like, oh, it just tastes good.
Exactly. And that's a very important thing with cravings. If you try to just block them, they're going to come back, and they're going to come back worse.
Let's we kind of got a good amount of questions in from the members, so we'll try to curb the topic around a few of the questions. So a popular nutrition topic, right? Fad diets, keto, paleo, all the things diet based. My question is, does one size fit all when it comes to diets?
No, absolutely not. 100% not. Like I said, everyone's different. Everyone have different situations. I think it's very important, if you're trying to do some kind of diet or like a specific nutrition path, to have enough knowledge to do it properly. Because if you're gonna try to do something like keto, it's very different from doing low carb. If you're gonna do keto, you're gonna have to put a lot of work in numbers and measurements. But if you're deciding to do a low carb or a paleo, you would want to ask why.
I just think that it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning, right? Is that I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it goes to one size doesn't fit all, where keto's gonna work maybe for Erin, but maybe it's not gonna work for the next person. we're just trying to complicate everything. And then you have like a handful of 20 diets and you're like, I don't know which one to try. So you're hopping week after week, and then it becomes like the inconsistency side of it. I think this would be good for Aaron to speak on a little bit, because just from personal experience, I know Aaron has dabbled into a little bit of different paths.
I like to trial everything before I give opinions on it. So I've tried probably every fad diet there is, just through experimental curiosity more than anything else. And I think the first question when it comes to fad diet, we call them fad diets. Some of these are legitimate. It's easy to hack on things like keto and stuff, but let's not forget keto was developed to treat drug-resistant seizures in kids with epilepsy, and it worked. Yeah. They then found, oh my God, they're losing a lot of body fat doing this. And that's when it became mainstream. So it's really easy to kick certain diets, but if they're generated for a reason, we've got to be aware that there's probably a reason behind a few of them. And there's generally some kind of scientific reasoning for why. The key concept to think about first is why you're doing the diet. Understand your goals. If you're just going, I'm going keto because 15 people told me they go keto and they feel great. It's like, all right, why are you going keto? And this is the argument that I have. I did keto for about a year, and I did it a second time for about 6 months, and I loved it. And I functioned amazingly well in it. At the time, my goal was to increase my mental functioning and capacity, and it worked for that reason. I felt that my CrossFit wasn't as good as it had been when I was eating a higher carb diet. But going back to what Galit said, I was taking blood measurements. I was actually in ketosis. I wasn't just saying I'm doing a keto diet and eating a lot of fat. Mm-hmm. I was taking bloods every day, 3 times a day, to make sure I was staying in ketosis. This is 2 different things. But I was aware of my goal. My goal was I wanted to see if I could perform better in ketosis from a mental perspective. That was my goal coming in. If my goal is to put on a whole ton of lean muscle mass, I'm probably going to add rice to my diet and things like that to help feed to the glycogen stores and things like that. You've got to understand what your goal is going into it first. If your goal is to put on weight, keto is going to be hard because you're going to lose a bit of weight. And likewise with anything. So the first thing is you got to be understanding of what the goal is first. Once you understand the goal, then you can start to say, all right, what kind of eating habits can I make to then support that goal? And then the decisions come in. But then you've got a second question. And also, again, alluded to this, but we've got to think, okay, can I sustain this? And you've got to ask that from a personal perspective. I'm extremely disciplined. I can do ketosis because I am extremely disciplined. And I don't have a problem with being able to just eat the same thing over and over. And I can remove foods from my diet and I actually get a kick out of the fact that I'm choosing to not eat it. But if it's easy to use keto as an example because it's a very restrictive diet, but let's look at paleo then. If you know that you're someone that cannot go a few weeks without eating something processed, is the paleo diet for you? Probably not. You've got to understand your limitations, understand why you're doing it in the first place, and then start to ask informed questions. But when it really comes down to it, any healthy diet, and they're not all necessarily healthy, but any healthy diet comes back to the principles of stop eating processed foods.
Going back to let's hop into your nutrition coaching a bit, Galit. Do you thoughts on MyFitnessPal, food tracking, the goods, the bads? Again, is it meant for everyone? Let's dive into that a little bit. What are your thoughts on food tracking?
Well, it has to do with the goals. Like Aaron said, that's what it usually goes back to. Why would someone decide to start tracking their macros with for example, MyFitnessPal? For me, I tried to do it many times, and it has been difficult because having my daughter, sometimes she doesn't want to eat something, and I'm not going to put it in the bin. I'm going to eat it. So I'm not going to put, I ate half a sausage, or I ate 21 grams of rice. It just got in my experience and in my life and in my situation. It didn't make sense. So what I decided to do is to hand portions, which is a little bit more free, and it lets me have an easier knowledge of what I'm consuming. For some people, if it works, that's great. I'm sure that the person who decides to do it is a person who needs to have some control and some knowledge about how many grams of each thing to eat. And it has to do also with the amount of calories they're burning and the goal, which would be or building muscle or maintaining or losing weight. So there are a lot of things in there. Yeah.
I agree with that. I think some people are data driven, and that can motivate a lot. It can also stress you by looking at the numbers, and missing them can also stress you out. The bigger picture, we got to take the 1,000-foot view from here. And this is something that I spoke about with Galit. A lot of the time exactly tracking our macros is fine tuning effectively. Yeah. I like to use the analogy that if I own a Ferrari and I'm worried about the exact oil ratio and how much oil needs to go in and what type of oil it is, that is irrelevant if I'm missing a freaking wheel. Let's fix the major issues before we start to dial in the little ones. And that's why I think a lot of people go wrong. They start to track their macros, and it's like, dude, you're eating cupcakes every day. Step 1, remove the shit. Step 2, now let's start to try to dial it in if you're somebody that can motivate by that and not let it get you down. Because if it ends up stressing you out and you spiral into some kind of dark place as a result, you've gone to the opposite to why you were trying to eat health in the first place. This is for health. So if it makes you less healthy to track a macro because it's mentally playing on your mind, or you're addicted to like logging stuff, maybe we've got to question like the purpose there. So I feel like it's a fine tuning system, and it's when you're very goal driven. So if you're just tracking macros, what's your goal first? And this is what Galit said. If I'm trying to put on some muscle, then I might want to I'm looking to add 4 pounds of lean muscle and lose 2 pounds of body fat or something like that. Then you might need to start tracking, but you're going to want to be eating healthy in the first place, get those big issues fixed, get that wheel back on your Ferrari before you start to dial in the oil. And then that's when it becomes a useful tool if you are somebody that can respond well to numbers and data. Is the second part of that.
In precision nutrition, what I learned is like you have 2 levels of clients. So you have one level of clients from level 1, which are the ones that need to basically learn what are the good things that they can eat and what things that they need to stay away, or how to adjust the things that they're eating. And once that is during a period of time sustainable and they actually naturally know the good things and the bad things to eat or not to eat, then you take an extra step. Once that is sustainable and it's been for a while, you take the extra step of maybe checking the calories and having a bit more control. Because if something is not sustainable, something so easy like knowing you not to eat processed foods, then what's the point of counting calories with an app?
Yeah, I agree with that. Another question that came in from a member, just kind of about recommendations. So we had 2 of them. One question was regarding protein powders. So how do you feel about protein powders, Galit?
If you're eating enough protein in your day, you definitely don't need them. The whole idea of it is that it's a supplement. At the same time, you would have to be kind of keeping an eye on how much protein you're eating. So right. The first thing that I recommend is each meal to base it in the protein, and then build the rest of the things around the protein. So you make sure that you're actually having enough protein. If you're able to do that and make sure that you're having enough in each meal, you shouldn't need to get a supplement of protein. But in the case that you want to get a supplement, the trick is to read labels, make sure it doesn't have things that might be nasty for you, any extra things that are not protein, and just keep it into even though it's kind of processed, keeping it to a minimum.
Yeah, minimally processed.
Yeah,
exactly. I think at the risk of sounding like a broken record, you need to understand your goals before diving into stuff like this. And exactly like you said, if the idea is that we get enough protein from the meals that we eat, and that's why this is supplementation. And then there's going to be times where But bodybuilders and people that are training really hard will supplement with protein, because to get the additional amount of protein in their day that they need to fuel, not to fuel their workouts, to enhance their recovery and their muscle breakdown post workout, then it makes sense from that element. If you're not really working out and breaking down your muscle tissue, there's not a huge requirement for that. So you got to get your goals right first, understand why you're taking it. If you're just taking it because you don't eat any protein in your diet, fix your diet first. And then if you need to supplement, hence the word supplement, if you need to supplement, then use protein. And protein from a supplements perspective, from a scientific perspective, is one of the very rare supplements that actually have scientific proof that works. So the concept of supplementing protein is a solid one. It works if that's what you need to do to supplement.
It's funny how nutrition, healthy eating, and fitness go such hand in hand, in the sense that it's not really going to work if you don't have goals. If you're just kind of doing it because you liked the way that one person looked online because they were showing some type of diet that they were following, it's going to be hard to stick with if you don't really know your personal purpose, why you're kind of trying to go down that path.
That's the whole point of coaching. It's not just tell me what can I eat, make me a meal plan. It's not that. It's sitting down, having a chat, trying to see which ways you can help the other person with their own uniqueness of life that they have, to be able to, for starters, eat less processed food. And then you just start to see what the whole goal is and how to adjust it.
We are super responsible for the bodies that we are living in. It's the only body that we are given. It's so important to be more mindful about what is going into us. The mentality of just like, well, I want to enjoy life and not have to like restrict and worry about what I'm eating. But then my question is like, who said that like eating healthy has anything to do with not enjoying what you're eating and restriction? Like that is the least, it's just like this mentality that some people have gained. And then to even argue that fact against like you taking years off of your life just because of something that tastes good to put in your body, it just baffles me sometimes that some people can't really understand that.
Yeah, I have a friend who used to cook meals at home. He would buy the cheapest ingredients and the most processed food he could possibly get, so that because he didn't want to spend money on food. But then he would never put anything less than the most expensive premium fuel in his car, because he says he wants it to run well. And I just could never understand that mindset, that he's like happy to fuel his own body, the one thing that matters, with the worst fuel you can get. But when it came to fueling his car, he thought it was blasphemous to put anything that wasn't 100% the best quality through the engine.
And I'll go, chatting about like the price side of it, and like a lot of people thinking that healthy eating is more expensive can be a whole nother podcast, because it's hard to understand people's mentality on that. But going down that line, if it's going to cost you an extra few dollars to get something organic or to get a whole food rather than a bag of chips, spend the extra few dollars on yourself. You are spending it on yourself and your life and adding like healthiness into you. Like spend that extra few dollars. Like that shouldn't be a battle. There shouldn't even be a question of like, if you want to spend more money on food.
It comes back to that mindset thing in the end. Like, are we able to think about our bodies from a healthy perspective and what that's going to mean in the long run? And next time there's a pandemic, how are we going to survive it? But it's immediate gratification tends to win in the majority of people. So again, it comes back to the mindset, being able to change our belief patterns so that we can ignore that the urge to eat food that's going to give us some immediate gratification, but long-term dissatisfaction effectively.
Yeah, and sometimes not accepting that maybe some people don't have the knowledge and they just don't want to ask.
Yeah.
They just stick to what they know and they say, well, I grate 1 carrot and I'll be fine. And it's not that simple.
Galit, healthy snack recommendations. What are some go-tos, or what are some things that you would advise people to kind of look for when it comes to easy snacks?
A lot of members have been having issues with the healthy sweet snacks. So it's a big situation with processed sugar. So healthy sweet snacks is usually the answers that I've been getting that have been a problem. And some people get into saying that if they make a snack with dates, for example, that should be fine. And yes, definitely dates are much more healthier than white sugar, 100%. But the thing is, if you're gonna make bliss balls with 300 grams of dates and you're gonna eat 7 of those balls, you're still consuming a crazy amount of sugar. So what I usually do for myself, and I recommend to my clients a lot, is if you crave chocolate, make a chocolate bar. Make a chocolate bar with, for example, oatmeal, which is going to keep you full for longer. And there's no need to have all that sugar inside. So it's just finding a balance into what you want and what you are giving to your body to keep it happy and healthy.
I think with snacking, the key is to eat fibrous food so that you don't snack so often, so you're more full. Going back to the dates, a date is effectively it's processed fruit because it's been dried out. Same thing as when you juice fruit, you're effectively extracting the sugar element. So a fruit is made up of, effectively, let's go as simplistic as possible, it's made up of 2 things: sugar, tastes sweet, that's why we all love fruit, and fiber. If you start to process fruit, so you dry it out and make grapes, or if you process it through a food processor and just drink the juice, you have just removed all of the fiber, the healthy part, and now you're just consuming the sugarous part. That's why it tastes so damn good. So try to eat the fruits as whole. So if you can eat whole fruits as a snack, you're not going to need to snack so often. And try to get fibrousness. So like Galit said, if you're going to make a bar, use some oatmeal or something so that it's more fibrous and it's going to be more filling, so that you're not so hungry when you finish eating it and you just continue to snack. I think a really easy thing to think about when you're snacking, or if you're making your own snacks, that Ben Bergeron said once, and it really stuck with me: if you have to put the word healthy in front of it, it's probably not healthy. Nobody's ever called it a healthy apple. It's just an apple.
I think that something to touch up on that is just to reiterate, this is not us saying that fruit is not healthy because it has sugar, because that is a very huge misconception that drives me nuts sometimes. It becomes unhealthy when you're juicing and all you're taking is the sugar out of it, right? So what Erin's saying is, if you're just taking out the sugar, not getting the fiber side of it, yeah, then you're kind of missing the point of that whole apple. But the sugar in the fruit is not the problem. The tablespoon of sugar that you put in your tea and coffee, that's the problem, because that adds up every day, every week, and every month. There's no need to add extra sugar to stuff. It drives me crazy. The best thing to take away, right, is one size does not fit all here, but it's really just important to educate yourself. Like, don't put the blinders up when it comes to what we're putting into our body, whether you're a CrossFitter or just a type of fitness enthusiast or not. Like, maybe you're just like, your general average Joe, that's fine, but use the scientific data that's out there, multiple, right? Don't always just go towards one, and personal experience, and then just make good judgment out of it. And then if you're still lost, you go to Galit, because she's a great nutrition coach. Thank you, Galit, very much.
I think just to round it out, we've got right now in this situation, a lot of people are spending more time at home, so they are having a bit of trouble with some choices. And I think key to just a little parting advice for the people that are at home and are struggling with things: go back to try to understand what your goal is. What are you trying to achieve? And if your goal is to not increase weight in the time that you're spending at home, you're going to want to come back to that goal and start to make that goal as the hinging point for your decision making. And then question, is this a mindset issue or is this a nutrition knowledge issue? Because a lot of the time it's not a nutrition knowledge. When I've spoke to my clients and I've said, what's the biggest challenge you face right now? They say nutrition. I say, all right, how so? And they say, I'm snacking on shit that's in the cupboard. I'm like, well, that's a willpower issue. Were you aware that the cupcake was unhealthy? Yes. All right. So you have the knowledge. The willpower is the issue here. We need to address that. And so have a look at, from a broader picture, what the issue is. And another one that I just want to get without ranting, but I really want to put this across, is that I hear this often being a CrossFit coach. And when we talk about nutrition, we say to somebody, we need to stop eating the processed sugary snacks. And I hear, but I need them in the cupboard because my kids need to eat them. And I like, if you could just stop and listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth at that point. You are saying that you understand it's unhealthy and you don't want to put it in your body, but you need it to feed to your children. That is completely backwards. If you know that it's unhealthy, don't feed it to your children. I wouldn't have thought that would be needed to be said, but it is. And this comes up quite often. I have junk food in the cupboard because I need it for my children. And that's just a mindset approach right there. We need to shift that belief pattern because it's in their interest. They're too young to make these decisions and we've got to keep them healthy. That's on us.
Yeah, not only make healthy choices for yourself, but make healthy choices for your kids.
Yep.
So that they can grow up to lead those healthy lives. Very good point. Thank you very much, Galit, for joining us today.